Reaching Complex Students Through Collaborative Distance Education Part 2 is a lightning talk titled Engagement and Distance Learning for Students Who Use AAC Devices. The presenters are Dr. Deborah Taub and Dr. Jacqui Kearns of the TIES Center, University of Kentucky.
Hi, my name is Dr. Debbie Taub, and this is Dr. Jacqui Kearns, and we're with the TIES Center, which is a technical assistance center for inclusive practices with a focus on students with the most significant cognitive disabilities. We're going to be talking about engagement and distance learning for students who use communication systems, or AAC. Our goal today in our quick lightning talk is to share examples of what distance learning and engagement for students with significant disabilities who use AAC can look like in inclusive contexts. So how am I going to include these kids who have some pretty significant needs?
So the first question is, what is AAC? And AAC can be a range of tools, whether it's a device, an eye gaze system, or just a board of pictures that the student regularly uses and pictures that are related to the content. So AAC is any form, may take a variety of forms. But kids, in order, if they don't use oral speech, they will need some form of AAC in order to actively participate in the lesson.
So imagine with this population trying to have them engaged in academics and social skills and social life when you're not actually in the classroom, which is what a lot of schools, all the schools are dealing with right now due to COVID-19, but it's also probably something we need to consider for the future too. So there are a couple ways you can do it. One, you can use things that are already in students' hands and something they may already know, like using text to be able to communicate. Using emojis is certainly something that pretty much all kids have some access to and some use of. You can use things like these little popsicle stick reminders that an adult or other students can use as reminders for behavior cues, or for even you could change these to academic answers so the kids could choose, hold one up on each side of the screen, and the kids could use eye gaze to choose which answer they want to use. You can use what's known as a core board, which usually always has core vocabulary in it that the students can use to make sentences. And then you can also use tools that we already have, some high tech, some low tech, and some no tech, where we work to really explicitly have students collaborate and work together even outside of the school time. So having activities where they have to do partner work, or they have to send an email to somebody, or they have to text somebody a book review, something that lets them have an opportunity, a structured opportunity to communicate with other students, and also to have opportunities for those students to model the AAC with the student who uses it. Because one of the things we know is that if you don't see language and hear language, you're not going to learn language. So we want to provide opportunities for everybody in the class to be able to use that in order to promote that learning for everyone.
And AAC users generally hear speech. They hear the language that other students are hearing, but they don't always see the device that they're using being used. So that's why that's important. The other thing you can do is do books on slides. This is an example of an adapted PowerPoint, adapted book with that's made into a PowerPoint slide. This one is
Huckleberry Finn?
Huckleberry Finn, right. It's like, which one is it? Tom Sawyer or Huckleberry Finn?
Yeah, there you go. That's the other one I was thinking of.
I think it's Tom Sawyer, actually. Yeah. So the Tom Sawyer is adapted, so there are not too many slides. And there are icons or pictures, fringe pictures on each slide.
And I just want to point out here, we can share this with everybody in the class, so that while some students may be reading the full unabridged text, everybody can have access to this and can use these in their answers to model for those students who use AAC.
Exactly. In this one, in this adapted book, there is a question on each page, and in the yellow. So this one is the grouchy ladybug, and on the question is in the yellow box. And if you select the correct answer, it's animated, and so it will either turn or illustrate the answer. So it's more interactive.
In reality, flexibility and UDL are key. If we're going to do distance learning with kids who have intense needs and use AAC, we need to make sure that we do a few things pretty consistently to make sure they have access to the content and the social skills and the opportunities to be with other peers. So for instance, if a student knows a tool or a technology already, don't make them learn another one just because it's the newest flavor of the week. You want to make sure that we're not teaching them new tools in addition to teaching them new content, because that may be too much for them to get at one time. So focus on using tools and technology they already know if there's something that already does what you wanted them to do. Also, we want to plan for universal instruction. So as you're building your lessons, as you're building your platforms, think about, is it accessible? Are there other ways to access and respond to information? Have all the students in inclusive classes received the AAC supports so that they can use them for modeling? So if I'm using a core board, I can send that out for all the students through email or snail mail so that they can have the same thing and use that to model if they're sharing ideas on Flipgrid or videos, Google Classroom, whatever. But that gives that student who uses AAC lots of opportunities to see their communication system being used. Are there multiple reasons students would engage with this work? And are there choices? So in sharing work, we want to share also those core and fringe boards that are specific to, so the fringe boards that are specific to content that we're working on.
Because those students will need the words to talk about them. So this was we want to make communication engaging. We want to inspire kids to want to talk. And so if it's shocking or gross or weird or unusual or interesting, we've got their attention. And using AAC is hard, and so it has to be worth it. This is a simple vinegar and baking soda experiment but it's under blacklight, and it has fluorescent paint in it, so that if you have a kid with vision challenges, they're going to see that bright. They're going to see the experiment happen, and you can always add more vinegar and more baking soda and make more bubbles come out.
The other thing you can use is a communication goal or activity matrix, which really lets you look at all of the communication acts that the student might be doing, requesting, refusing, commenting, asking, and when during the day they can do that. You can also do it by classroom activity to see what kinds of activities the student did do, and did they use the activity as it was? Were the materials appropriate as they were? Were the goals appropriate? Was the personal support there? What adaptations were used? And were there any alternative activities that you had to consider or that you need to consider to make this more accessible for the student? So these are some resources, and that you can see the TIES resource, and we'll put all of these up for sharing so that people can see them. And thank you. Anything you want to add, Jacqui?
Sounds good. You can also, on your lesson, invite the speech-language pathologist to join you. And she might be very excited to do that.
Absolutely. And I'll add, if you're choosing technology at a district or state level, make sure you have a speech therapist or speech-language pathologist there who can provide some insight in terms of accessibility. Thanks.
Thanks.